That brings us to our next speaker from Dubai, Neil Rangel. Most of us know about his recent experiences with COVID. I know Neil from the college days as a stellar student who aced all exams, topping his class, along with his friend and classmate Anthony Roberts, another stellar Johnite. After completing his MBBS at Johns, he did his rural service before doing MD medicine and DM endocrinology at AIMS. He has been working in Dubai since, I believe, early 2000 as a consultant endocrinologist. Currently, he works at Mediclinic in Dubai. If anyone can teach us anything about COVID, it is Neil. He will also teach us on how to be a felinophile or a lover of cats. We have Neil.
Yeah, hi. Good day to everyone. I just like to explain what really happened to me. Okay, that's me with my oldest boy, Tommy. He's about 8 years old. This is the most recent fellow we found on the road, Gabby. I had 7 of them, but currently have 6. Okay, now just to start with how everything hit me. Uh, this talk about chloroquine, hydroxychloroquine came in sometime in March, and I said, why not? Because I've taken it in the past. In the village, I used to take 2 tablets of chloroquine every week, and even now, going to Goa, if I landed up on the farm, I used to do the same thing. So I had a few strips with me. From the tablet count, I'd taken about 7 tablets over 7 days. Then, in the last week of March, I started having a respiratory tract infection. Now, this is not new to me because I get these horrible respiratory tract infections at least once a month, where you could probably hear me cough about 100 meters away. I take nothing for that other than cough syrup. This time it was a bit different. I had very minimal cough, possibly fever, which I never tested, but severe body aches and pains. I did take a bit of azithromycin, then it didn't work. Then I finally got a prescription from the doctor. Okay, I may have taken 2 tablets in the last week of March, but I'm not too sure. Can we go to the next slide? It just happened that my nursing assistant, who's mostly with me, also fell ill around the same time. She was admitted with fever, and the moment they told us she was COVID positive, it became mandatory for any contacts to go and test it. So that late evening, it was 31st March, I went to the emergency for testing. They told me I had a high grade fever, about 38 or 39 degrees, and some alveolar shadows on the X-ray, along with uh, auscultatory findings. The CRP was 101. I had a WBC count of about 3,000, and they did advise admission. What happened was it was pretty late in that evening or night, and there was no way because I had these 6 kitties in the house. So I said, hold on, just give me the Panadol and I'll go home and come back. Now, the fever of 39, I had a respiratory rate of around 38 or 40, but was very, very comfortable. So finally, I got admitted on the first. It seemed okay till the first or second, but I deteriorated on the second, and it was quite progressive from afternoon to evening time. Worsening of dyspnea, the X-ray turned bad. I was unable to maintain. They finally shifted me to the ICU and put me on something called high flow nasal cannula. I believe it's 60 liters per minute. I don't know how. That also never seemed to work. Can we go to the next slide? Finally, I don't remember anything what happened, much of what happened in the second, because I was a bit drowsy. I couldn't open my eyes and totally fatigued. And I could hear voices of probably registrars coming in and telling me, you need to get intubated. And I kept refusing because sometime in February, I lost one kitty in a surgery. The poor fellow never woke up from the anesthesia. And I said, oh, what if that happens to me? So finally, I just gave in. I had no choice. They told me not going to survive. So they put me in. Now I have no idea what happened because I was on the ventilator for roughly around 12 days. From the notes, I can see I was in some kind of a septic shock, ARDS. I was on norepinephrine infusion for 12 days, and they even gave me methylprednisolone. It went on for almost 18 days, and later on tapered it. I had repeated episodes of hypoxemia for many, many days. They even tried prone ventilation. And in the first week of intubation, I had a prolonged QT interval more than 500, along with a bradycardia. So they were all scared of me kind of going into a tossade as the point. Thankfully, nothing happened. So, but they couldn't use hydroxychloroquine or Caletra. Subsequently, much later on, I was given hydroxychloroquine and Avigan. Avigan comes from the government supply because I believe that's extremely expensive. And as of now, it's just reserved for those on ventilatory support. From what the notes I could see, I was given even doxycycline at some time in the initial stage. They even gave me Tamiflu and also ceftriaxone for a lot. But methylprednisolone for many, many days, that also explains the little puffiness of my face. Next slide. It just happened for many days. I think probably the last week or so that they've probably even given up hope, and many doctors just come and see through the screen, and they say we don't really know what's happening. Probably this guy is going to kind of go off today, tomorrow, kind of a thing. It was also a mental trauma for my brother and sister because they were away, and all that they could do was just call up the next day and find out. It seemed I was also unresponsive to many medications. Towards the end, I needed phenobarbital, benzodiazepines. Uh, about 10 days on the ventilator, things started improving. I believe on the prone ventilation, the ET tube got displaced and they finally pulled it out on the 14th. Next slide. Next slide. Okay, now I went through some kind of delirium. I'm not sure if it was a trance or some kind of hallucination, which was very frightening. I thought I was in Ames, enslaved by demons, transported dead bodies. Or worse than that, I thought I was uh, transporting the dead bodies of both my parents. Daddy's dead, but mummy's still alive. I could see skeletons talking. I was in a cave trapped. I had to kind of escape with my mother out. And worse is they shackled my hands and feet, and they even told me that you probably done something. You pulled out some tubes, so we're going to tie you off. And this went on for almost 2 days. It was quite frightening. And finally, I got back to my senses in 2 days. But the next week or so after that, I was horribly weak, and I couldn't imagine that I couldn't even support my neck or sit up in bed or even hold a spoon. A lot of incoordination. But I recovered quite quickly. I just needed nasal cannula for about 3 or 4 days. I wasn't able to maintain saturation, but things improved and I quickly returned back to normal. Can I have the next slide? Next slide. Okay, now they actually did an interleukin 6 and they did want to give me one of those antagonists, but the interleukin 6 level was normal. But you can see my D dimer levels, they jumped up to almost 4,000. If 500 is the lower limit, the upper limit of normal. Now, the levels persisted even beyond discharge. So, on discharge, the doctor did give me Clexane or enoxaparin, which I took for about 2 weeks. As soon as the levels had normalized, I discontinued it. Uh, Next slide. Okay, that's the initial X-ray. Can we go to the next one? Now, this is what happened within less than 48 hours. The next one. This is about the second day of ventilatory support. And that's the CT. I believe they just reported something called ground glass appearance. The next one. This is some more recent X-rays that's after discharge. There are a few alveolar shadows which are still there, and I'm not sure how long they're going to take to clear up. Okay, that's me right now. uh, that's it for now. Yeah. As of now, I've almost completely recovered. For about a week or so after discharge, I did have a bit of dyspnea on exhaustion, but now it's fine with me. I mean, I do get tired. I'm not back to my normal self, but that's no reason to sit in the house. And the clinics are quite light, so I go to work about 2 or 3 clinics a week. Yeah, and I just like to thank all of you for all the prayers. I believe it was miraculous because in the last few days they really thought I was going to go away, and thank God I'm alive. And yeah, I survived. Thanks a lot. Yeah, that's it. I finished. Yeah.
Thank, thank you, Neil, for such heartfelt talk. I mean, our eyes are filling up with tears, and you know that the entire John I crowd from all over the world had prayers for you, and their prayers were with you every single day after we heard you were not well. Um, and of course, as a physiatrist, physical medicine and rehab specialist, my question to you would be, now that you have recovered like this, and you were talking a little bit about how your function was improving, are you doing any aerobic or strength training exercises to help with your functional recovery?
Actually, I'm doing it myself in the ward. I got the physiotherapist to work with me, and I did have a bit of incoordination and muscle weakness, a lot of proximal weakness, a lot of muscle aches. But trust me, within a week, as soon as I went home, everything improved. I'm almost back to normal. I have this stepping machine which I can do almost 2,000 steps at one go. I even use I can kneel down and push my with my hands and do a lot of exercise. Trust me, I don't know why, but I feel completely normal. It's just that if I overexert myself, I do get a bit of fatigue, but I'm kind of forcing this exercise on myself since I'm alone, and when you're alone, you get lazy and there's nobody to be after you. Uh, but I try to do a bit of exercise. The other thing, I lost about 7 or 8 kilos of weight, which is also good for me. I'm happy with this whatever 72 or 73 kilos that I am. But I do exercise, but trust me, I'm doing it only because I'm free at home, and I'm a bit lazy, but I'm not too good at exercising. But I feel completely normal otherwise.
Thank you.
Just the first 2 weeks, I lost my voice completely, but it came back, thankfully.
Thank you, Neil. And for everyone around there, I do also want to remind you that one of our Johnites, batch of 1983, Felicia Ann Ambrose, had right in the beginning of the pandemic created a home care functional recovery guide for patients and their family members, which is available right now and posted onto all the Johnite sites, the Facebook, the WhatsApp groups. So that would be a good resource. At this point, I also take the opportunity for a shout out to all Johnites and friends of St. John's all over the world who have taken an initiative in doing things during this pandemic, and just showing everybody how people can make a difference.